in the continuation from 12th Economics, chapter number 3, Liberalization, Privatization and Globalization. Today we are going to discuss a very important organization which is related to the multilateral trade. So, the today's topic is the World Trade Organization, W.T.O, which have been established in January 1995. But before the establishment of the WTO, it has seen a long journey. So it will be also good that if we are able to know in the higher classes about the background and the history of the WTO. So we will start from the consequences of the Second World War. We know very well that there were two allies. One was the Allies powers. They were having the US, Britain, France, USSR and China. And the other allies that were the Axis powers. These Axis powers mainly Germany, Italy and Japan. So the World War II has given lot of damage to all the countries, especially the Allies powers and Axis powers. So a lot of damage was there, destruction was there. Now what was the need of the hour that time? That was the need of hour. That was the time when all the country want to overcome from these damages, these destructions. So they have, many of the countries, they have decided to come together and they have conducted a conference that is called the Bretton Woods Conference. So after the Second World War, there was a conference that is known as the Bretton Woods Conference. It held in the July 1994 at Hampshire, New Hampshire in the USA, and 44 nations have participated in this Bretton Woods Conference with the 730 delegates. Most of the countries and most of the powers, economic powers, especially of the European countries, they want to overcome from this crisis of the World War II which they have seen. What was the outcome of the Bretton Woods Conference? There were three important outcomes of the Bretton Woods Conference in this regard. Number one, the establishment of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in 1945. International Monetary Fund, which is also known as the fund, that was mainly established to see the exchange rate variations, the foreign exchange rates variations, and to see the balance of payments, BOP payment settlements among the countries. It was also a financial institution, and the second financial institution, that was the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Later on, the same institution, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, was well known by the World Bank. So, the establishment of the World Bank was the second important outcome of the Bretton Woods Conference. But the third very important aspect was still there, that could not be materialized that time, or the concepts of the principles that have not been finalized that time. That was the ITO, International Trade Organization. So basically there were three main important discussions about the three important organizations. Number one, IMF. Number two, World Bank or IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. They have came into existence and they have started to work. But the International Trade Organization, as I have put a round mark, did not came into the existence because the bilateral and multilateral trade related issues, they were very much complicated, complex, and they have lot of conflicts and contradictions among the countries. The countries had their vested interest. There were that time mainly two, we can say there were two categories of the countries. Number one is the developed countries or industrial countries, which mainly prevailing that time the capitalist type of economy, The other side, the countries were developing countries or least developed countries. So there were fractions, there were no agreements regarding the trade related issues. So this concept of ITO, International Trade Organization, could not be materialized that time. Later on, what was the reasons on this? The failure of ITO, what was the main reasons? The issue of international trade, no concrete decision was taken because of complexities, complications and contradictions in the multilateral trade. The developed country, they have their own interest, and the developing country, they want aid, financial aid, different type of helps from the developed countries. And that time there was the main purpose, every country want to protect their own economy, and this protection of their own economy have been done by the trade barriers or trade obstacles like NTB, non-trade barriers, and tariff barriers. NTB means non-tariff barriers, and quota like quantitative trade barriers. So ultimately they have not reached to a uniform decision. So the concept of WTO taken around 50 years with 8 rounds of conferences or negotiations, and it has been WTO has been established in 1995. So we will see the journey from GATT to WTO. GATT was known as the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade.